just thinking about harm and the kind of harms that can befall a person, and what the worst kind of harms are, and what we think of when we think about harm. Because harm covers an enormous range of different things, doesn't it? Really, an enormous range. But I think it's one of those categories of experience, one of those categories, which is what they call a radio category based on prototypes. It's not a clearly bounded thing, is it, harm? That's the other kind of categories. A category based on necessary and sufficient conditions, as they're called. That's the category which has got clear boundaries around it, so you can easily say, oh, this is in the category and this is out of the category. But harm isn't like that. It's this other this other kind, this radio category based on prototypes. That means, I think there's, for all of us, we could probably get a measure of agreement about what would be in the centre of those experiences. What are forming those prototypes. Within the centre of harm, I think we would probably put physical pain. The most extreme versions of physical pain. Non-consensual physical pain probably as well, because one of the most extreme physical pains apparently is childbirth, and that tends to be consensual, doesn't it, for the most part. So, notwithstanding that, non-consensual physical pain, I would guess, is right at the centre of what constitutes harm in our imagination and when we think about it. And certainly a lot of the videos that I've seen on YouTube, for example, when people talk about harm and suffering, it's usually physical pain that they kind of keep alluding to. But that's quite limited, isn't it, really? Because a lot of the harms that we experience aren't physical at all. And in fact, I would say that the worst harms almost exclusively aren't physical. If I had the choice, for example, to choose between a broken heart and a broken leg, I'd go for the broken leg, for sure. Even though a broken heart isn't physical at all, I would hate to have a broken heart. I'd much rather have a broken leg. I'd rather lose the use of my eyes. I'd rather go blind than to lose a loved one in a car crash, for sure. So those harms, those things that I would dread, aren't physical at all. They're emerging out of relationships and those kind of things. In fact, the worst things that can happen, I would think, don't happen to you at all. They happen to somebody else, don't they? The worst. If I have those nightmares, I think, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen in my life? It's nothing that happens to me. It's the things that happen to other people. It's my kids being hurt or killed. It's people who I care about, and harm coming to them is far worse than harm coming to me. Unless I'm in a Room 101 situation. I guess if all of us are put in those situations, in situations of extreme bodily torture, I guess, when you're thrown back onto that really limited version of what a self is, where you do end at the surface of your skin. Of course, yes, then we'll say all kinds of stuff, and that is the most extreme thing. But for most people, most of the time, the most extreme harm that can come to a person doesn't actually come to them at all. It comes to other people, doesn't it? There's something both kind of horrible, nightmarish, but also kind of celebratory about that in a way. This idea that the worst that can happen doesn't happen to you, it happens to people you know. But we're all people you know, we've all got those things, we're all networked into that, aren't we? Those people that we know that we think, God, I hope nothing happens to them, because that would be awful. They're also thinking something very similar, I bet. They're also thinking, oh yeah, I'd hate that to happen. I don't really want my kids to think, yeah, I'd rather I died than my dad died. But I do want, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that sort of thing does go through them. I'm reminded of that section in, what's it called? Jude the Obscure, Thomas Hardy novel, in which this lad, they're really poverty-stricken, this family, and they've got all kinds of problems. And this young lad, he's only like 12 or 13, I think. He's so concerned that his parents are having a terrible time, and he's taken that guilt so much on himself that he kills his kid brother and his kid sister, and then hangs himself because we are too many, he says. Because we are too many. And his father finds him and finds the note that said, because we are too many. I mean, that's it, and that's even the worst thing, I would think. It's bad enough thinking that your child or someone that you love is coming to some kind of harm, but the idea that the child or someone you love has harmed themselves, perhaps killed themselves, because they don't want you to come to any harm. It's just horrible, isn't it, really? Now, as I say, it's horrible and nightmarish, but at the same time, it's kind of, I don't know, weirdly life-affirming. You know, we're all kind of watching out for one another, dreading that something horrible will happen to one another. Possibly even martyring ourselves so that something bad doesn't happen to that other person who would probably martyr themselves so something bad didn't happen to us. We're all the same, really.